All right, welcome back. We are going to do some work now in general and housing on our budget memo. It's an annual thing that we've been asked to weigh in on. What we've been experiencing, of course, is not only the spreadsheet that was given to us that only had a few things on it that were in our purview specifically, but we've also had a lot of requests from different organizations. And so Damien kind of started I guess as a template for how these things may look. And I just want to go off the top of the bat because Representative Chestnut Tangerman's name is so long, we've had to, I don't know what we've had to do, but I'm sure that'll be fixed before we send it. It's encroaching on the logo.
My apologies to the state.
Yeah, this will, when we're finished with this, we'll send it back to Ron or Damien to work on. So the making an assumption here that we're going to finish this. Oh God. God, it's like cooking in other people's kitchens, working on somebody else's. So none of the text that's remaining in here was Damien's. What did I just do, Ron?
Save as PDF.
I didn't want to do that. Can I don't want to like, I want to scroll down and then type.
Okay.
Oh.
Your cursor to wherever you want it to be.
Which click is this and which?
This is left, this is right, where you can
Okay. So this is all my language now. So what I want us to do is to, and I've only gotten so far through this, but what I did was based on Damien's template was, okay, here's a topic, the Vermont Housing and Conservation Trust Fund, because we agreed yesterday by consensus that we support the full statutory allocation. And so this is just a bit of background information. Then I go down to, and I'm going to scroll back to it, then a quick conversation on the housing crisis, because some of these programs that we've been asked to comment on, the VHIP, the missing middle, et cetera, address that topic. And then, so then I get a specific, and I only got through healthy homes before I had to finish this morning. And then what's following on this draft is just, this is the text that was provided to us yesterday from the Affordable Housing Network that I'm using as drafted and changing it up to reflect the conversations that we've had. So what I want to do is kind of go through with what I've already written. Some of this might have opinion in it that you don't agree with, and I'd like you to call it out, and we can either delete it or discuss it and come to something more precise. So this is what we discussed. Just, give me a high sign if you think it's okay, and we can move on, or we'll deal with it.
Should it be first line property transfer tax is the primary source?
Yes. Yes, Representative Lamont.
Thank you. Is this only available on the big screen? I'm having trouble trying to make it bigger on. Oh wait, I figured it out. I just figured it out how to make it bigger. Sorry.
May move on to the next graph. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
um, uh, Chris Donnelly with Camden Housing Trust. I just noticed in the paragraph, I think, headed this, I think the governor's recommended 11.4 million that's there in that second line, does take into consideration the payment of the bond. So the 11.4 includes a reduction on that.
So
It includes the 1.5.
Yes,
Okay.
so you don't need to reduce it.
Okay, then I'm gonna cut that whole sentence. Thank you for the clarification. Are you satisfied with this? All right.
I think the top paragraph there is just stronger if you say, committee heard testimony from many representatives from housing and related organizations and the Affordable Housing Network requested. And then you.
The Affordable Housing Network.
Yeah. Do you want to say, built with the help of these funds to remain affordable in perpetuity? Those 5 years or length of the phone, length of the loan or whatever the other proposals are.
And right here, wherever the cursor
No,
is.
down 2 lines.
Yeah.
There.
Would you mind speaking up?
I'm sorry, I was asking whether that should say requires housing built with the help of these funds to remain affordable in perpetuity, since some of the other programs have require it to be affordable, but only for 5 years or the like.
Yeah.
I'll just state that I'm fine with a portion being used for affordable in perpetuity and the part that isn't.
Yeah.
We
I
thoroughly.
mean, those are policy choice. I mean, these are
Yeah.
these are the things that we have to decide, right? It's
Yeah.
just, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, for someone who's like perpetual affordability just trips off my tongue so quickly. I mean, again, these programs, the reality of what's going on in the world is forcing us to think about how we're going to do this differently. But it is a policy choice.
Yeah.
As long as we've addressed it a little bit in this committee, quite a bit in this committee. I want the appropriations committee to be aware of that. Can we find a better word than precious?
Dollars as fresh. Sorry, speak out loud.
Oh,
I mean, we don't have to, but I just,
yeah.
Yeah.
back. Me too. That's what you were talking about, Jim. Next paragraph.
Can you replace our stretching
But
I'm sorry, where are you?
on the top line?
Sure.
Stretching. Or that stretch.
So aware of the needs across more income levels?
No, just needs that stretch, or either needs that stretch or needs stretching.
I think what we're saying is that we support both programs.
Should the next paragraph where it says a further reminder, approximately 200,000 Vermonter taxpayers file returns for less? Can it say of less?
Yeah. And $60,000 is approximately 80% of area minimum, I think, across the state. You see that?
Look.
I'll bring my glasses with me.
It's a little under 80%. The top line.
Yeah.
So just under 80% of the state.
80% is $57,945.
So it's just over. Okay, are we okay with this section?
Yes.
This is the VHIP program. What does ADU stand for?
Accessory development.
Accessory, not adjacent. And I say that because saying what we're considering will be either in H111 or S100 or H68. There's, actually H68 is primarily zoning, but the language for VHIP will be addressed in the other bills. Satisfactory? Okay, the healthy home programs we heard was just about the infrastructure supports in mobile home parks and in other standalone areas. All right, now we're at the point of getting to. Okay, Ron, if I want to copy this, is it Alt C?
Alt A will highlight it, Alt, Control C copies. You just want to
Control C, yep. It's Control V. And the next thing on our list for VHCP is the middle revolving loan program. So putting aside the language now from here, what do we think about the middle income revolving loan, the rental revolving loan program? It's a new program, it has to be, all the rules have to be developed, et cetera, et cetera. And what we heard about it was that it would provide sort of, well, the way it was presented is that it would provide additive loans if a builder could only qualify to get 80% of their loan, they would be able to apply for this to build rental housing. There are certain limits to it with respect to, there are affordability covenants attached to them that are limited to the length of the loan plus 3 years. There are limits on how many loans one particular developer could apply for I believe well, the limits are approximately between $100,000 and $125,000 per unit based on the income level that it was going to be rented to. In other words, it's a program that doesn't exist yet. And the proposal in front of us was to ask for the $20 million the governor's recommend of $20 million. What do we want to say about? Do we support the program or the development of the program? I mean, again, the program might be completely different by the time we get to May or even to January. And so what we would be really approving over the course of this session is the development of this program and the request to fill up the revolving loan or to start filling up the revolving loan fund would be the governor's recommend is $20 million. So before I even write any text, what do we even think about this program and how would we make a comment about it? This is part, in the spreadsheet that we got, this is part of the 35.6 or $36.5 million line item. It's not broken out, but we've had it broken out for us. So, but we haven't had a conversation really amongst ourselves about it. Yes.
I think we should specify small private developers, since that's who it helps the most.
Define small private developer.
Well, that's a good question. It would have to be defined, and maybe not by me.
And this isn't the place to define everything.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, well, I met with some developers last week that want to put up a 90-unit complex in Lindenville, and one of the biggest cries was that there's, most of the money is all for nonprofits, to be able to build these housing units. And, they're saying that, they need to be more of this middle income rental loan money out there for contractors like themselves to be able to afford to build these units.
Well, and money that's out there, yes, there's a lot of money that goes to the nonprofit housing agencies, but they're not the only ones who can qualify for it, even through VHCV. It is a lot of work. But this program was developed to address that particular question, which is, can we develop a program that, for folks like that?
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that, I think it was in the capital need for housing development that Mr. Darnley had it, came out to 10 million, and the governor's asking for 20. Am I correct on that?
Yes, and yes, the recommendation or the recommendation from the Affordable Housing Network was to pencil it in at $10 million, I think, in recognition of the fact that the program would not be up and running for a while. But that's on the table. It's we're going to start with the governor's recommend of
Okay.
whether $20 million is the right number.
Okay.
Or not, but also, do we think this is a program that should be funded? That it's, because it's a part of their line item, it's part of the line items, and what's our recommendation? Representative Bartley, then Parsons?
I personally definitely feel that this is a program that should be funded. A few paragraphs above this, we said that everyone's saying we need more units, we need more units, we need more units. And we heard from 2 different developers on Friday that said, we can give you more units, but we need a program like this. So to me, it's definitely worth it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Joe was next.
Make it quick. Hit on marks. That
All right.
I guess my question is, I agree that we need a program like this. My question is about whether we can or should try to extend the duration of the affordability. Not in perpetuity, because it's
Just drawing a line, a boundary. We're not making up the policy now. There is no policy yet, which is this is the proposal. So how we approach it when we talk about it in committee, we can discuss this. Here, we've already asked the Appropriations Committee to consider perpetual affordability when they're talking about using general funds for these programs. The way I would do this text is to, emphasize it's a new program in development that is, I'm totally paraphrasing what I'm saying, but is in the mix of policy choices that we're making this year. And the recommend for that would be the governor's recommend for that is $20 million. And, you know, we're supporting the notion of the program because the program's not in place yet. I'll write something that's a little bit more professional than that, but but is that what I mean, is that a consensus agreement that that's what we're approving the notion of the program in development? You know, I mean, it's just saying that we know that it might be different. It might be a different program by May. But this is just saying that when it comes across the transom that we would like to have $20 million or $10 million or any $1 million reserved for this purpose. Yeah.
I love revolving loan programs. I think they're really healthy. And so
Okay.
double dittos.
Ditto.
It's Trudeau, I think.
Oh.
We've taken testimony from various management and leadership. For instance, the CEO of Northeastern Vermont Regional Hospital, Mr. Tester, about the difficulty in recruiting because there's no place to live. These people aren't low income, but they certainly are on the upper edge of middle income. And if you look at a school superintendent, they're having the same type of problems. Husband, wife team want to move into an area and become teachers. They're not low income, but there's no middle income housing. It's inventory is terrible. So I'm all for this. I think it'll fill a need across the spectrum. I don't care whether it's Global Foundries or whoever that's hiring. You really need housing.
All right, so I'm gonna, Saudia, Representative Lamont.
Thank you. Sorry, I have trouble working this tech stuff, but yeah, I just so there's not going to be policy around this. We're just supporting it. Just clarifying question. So we're saying
There is no policy about the middle income rental revolving loan program that's official yet. There is some policy in S100, which we'll get in a couple of weeks, presumably, from the Senate. Yeah, so we're writing text about basically supporting the notion of the program and would like to see this money be accounted for. And you know, just to know that it's there. So if the policy slips into place, then the money is available.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yes, I support that. It's really important, especially for other Vermonters to know that we're considering all Vermonters and not just low income Vermonters. So I appreciate that we are including that, even though the policy is not there yet. Thank you.
And so just a reminder, when the budget gets done, each house is going to do a budget. When we do the budget, it reflects the house's priorities as the appropriation committee takes in all these memos, works on their budget, comes up with a budget that's square, that's balanced, and based on the projections that we have. It'll come to the floor, we'll pass it. Why that's important is that then it goes to the Senate, and of course, they're going to go through a similar process that we're doing in terms of what their priorities are, and then it gets worked out at the end of the year. But in order to have standing when we get to the conference of representing the House's position on any particular items, that's what this memo is for. That's what our vote is for. But again, this is a program that hasn't been written yet, so we're supporting the notion of this program and the potential appropriation for it. And because we're at this point, and this is on a computer that I'm not familiar with, I'm gonna just write notes and then type them up during lunch and present them to us, get them to us this afternoon for review. So the other missing middle program is this. This is the missing middle home ownership program that's in place. It is oversubscribed. And the governor didn't put any money in the budget. And as the last sentence says, the House and Senate have concurred on the $9 million, which is what Moore Collins from VHFA talked about in the Budget Adjustment Act, which is coming over to us. I think we're voting on it perhaps as early as this week. Is that true, Representative Bloomberg?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was the Affordable Housing Network that was recommending a $50 million addition, but it would also be us saying, this was not put in the governor's recommend, and I don't know, we didn't take testimony on why. But if this is something that we support, then is this something that we support, and should we consider $15 million? Should we consider some other number, considering that $9 million is, and there's a representative from VHFA in the room, and I just have a question. Are the applications closed for this program?
Sure, the Chad Simmons Vermont Housing Finance Agency, yes, the application process is closed. We had a public process on the rules of the program last fall. The program then opened up in December. It was open for a little over a month. And our team worked with the developers to process the applications, so we were able to get everything processed. And at this point, we were allocated $15 million last year. We had about $24 million in applications that came. So at this point, we anticipate, depending on the act of the legislature, that we'd be able to either approve the full suite of approximately $24 million at our March board meeting, which would be in 2 weeks.
So that leads me to question whether or not this language is necessary because it sounds like the Missing Middle Home Ownership Program was treated as a pilot program with one-time money, and I think this is important to understand about any of these programs. The administration prefers one-time expenditures to not be ongoing programs, and we're assuming that the middle home ownership program is not baked into the budget because it needs $9 million to complete its pilot before it asks to be continued. Is that accurate?
Well, what I would say is I think Moore has testified to this effect that if the need is there, as the developers have said, and I think you had a few folks testify last week that if this program were to continue, we could easily go through another 20 million. And I think by the need is there, I think the challenges in the market, the starter home market, are so fraught that a program like the Missing Middle Home Ownership Program would fit that need. So we have testified that having additional dollars in future years would be a benefit to the state.
Did you get an understanding of why it's not in the budget? Why the program was not included in the budget?
I don't have that understanding. I think that would be a question for the governor for the DOC meeting.
Okay.
Clarification, looking at the information provided yesterday, seems like the ask was for an additional 6 to bring it to 15 total, 9 in the Budget Adjustment Act and 6 in the general budget. Is that accurate?
I think you would have to ask Chris. I think what is passed is 9 in the BAA.
Okay, and requesting another 6 to bring the program up to a total of 15.
But would you be able to, I mean, if the application process is closed for this slug of money, the $6 million, if it were appropriated to, would not do what $20 million would do. What would it do? Would you reopen the applications till you got $6 million more, or when you reopen applications, do you have to, is it too much to just do $6 million, close them?
Right. We have talked about And I can check in with my colleague Seth Leonard, who operates the program, and get back to you on a firm number. But there would be a point where if it were just 5 million, it would only cover, you know, a handful of homes. Whereas being able to have 10 million or plus would be able to provide more homes construction.
Okay, so again, the missing middle, yeah, Representative Parsons?
I just have a question while you're here. Information on the disbursement of those?
Sure, in terms of geographic location?
Yeah.
We've 9 counties, and I don't have the exact towns for all of the applications that have come in so far, but 9 counties are represented in the applicant pool, which would cover about 141 homes.
So you don't have any kind of data set on that?
I can get that for you, yep.
That'd be great, thank you.
Yep.
So I guess, again, because it's not in the budget, again, this was a program that was discussed, much like the way that the missing middle rental loan fund will be discussed. But this program was discussed and shaped over the course of the session last year. Very quickly, what it does is it uses ARPA dollars so that if, in a way that says, the developer comes and says, we have this home that fits, we want to build this single family home that fits the criteria that's been issued by VHFA in terms of affordability, in terms of all of the things that all of the strings, if you will, that VHFA has put on the disbursement of this money. But if the developer comes in and says, I can't build this house for the amount of money that it's appraised for. So if they know that it's going to be appraised for a certain amount, is appraised the right word? Yeah. This is going to be appraised at 375, but it's going to cost $425 to build. They would make an application to this program for that money, and the money helps subsidize the construction. There are covenants, there are affordability covenants that are lesser than in the projects that are not in permanently affordable shared equity programs. There's limited affordability attached to them that could be transferred. But that's in a very small nutshell. That's what this program does. The rental program is riffing off this idea, but going in a completely different direction with respect to rental units being built and a loan fund being created, because these are the money that's been used in this program have been grants to the developers to subsidize the cost of building and bringing in an appraised value.
Just to clarify, there are 2 portions. There's the subsidy to the builder, the developer, and then there's the subsidy that goes to the ultimate buyer to bring down the cost of the home.
Right, with the idea that at a certain income level, even 375 isn't affordable to people who are at middle incomes or, at up to 120% of area median income, that they may not qualify for a mortgage at 375. So it buys down it's a grant to buy down it's a grant or loan.
These would be grants.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Which differs from, and in our current application process, about 35% of the proposed units would fall within the shared equity model.
So the question before us is, it's not in the governor's recommends. So the question is, do we want to raise support for this program? And after we do this, then we're going to get to VHCB, but then we're also going to get to these other programs that have come to us, like SASH and Pathways and others that have come forward and asked for our support in some way. Do we want to continue to recommend that this program be funded, and if so, at what level? Because this would be, well, I'll just leave it there. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would support this program. We seem to let the middle class, if you will, people kind of like hang out there for such a long time without a lot of help, especially in the housing market. And I think this would, be something that would be able to generate a lot of interest for, builders, of course. And, yeah, I think this is a good program.
I'd agree. I think one of the things we talk about in other discussions is how home ownership is a way of building generational wealth and moving up. And I just feel like if we're going to use this type of program for rentals, it wouldn't make much sense to me to not include it for home ownership as well, if we're saying that helps build that. So, but thank you, and I would like to see the disbursement of it, considering it wasn't included. So I don't know.
Yeah, I know my colleagues actually just texted. He did clarify that last year we testified that anything under 15 million would be harder to stand up. So that was what we testified to last year, and I'll be able to provide that geographic disbursement of the applications.
Thank you.
I also think it's important to support the middle income segment toward home ownership and building generational wealth.
So are we, so if we support this program, what number would we want to put down for the appropriations committee to consider? It's already, so $15 million is what we put in last year. It was oversubscribed to 24, which we've taken care of in the budget adjustment. Do we want to put anywhere between, because we're also thinking when we get back to VHCB, we're going to be talking about what's already been granted to the BAA, in terms of it being a full year appropriation. Or full sessions worth of appropriations. And so do we consider this $9 million just a, part of, that means obviously the part of this year's appropriation or part of the budget adjustment? And what would we want to put forward or recommend moving forward? 15, is that, do we want to just, again, this is one time money. This isn't confirming that this is baked in as an ongoing program. So every year we would be making the same, over the course of the session, we'd be making the same decision until it becomes a baked in program, if it ever gets that far. But right now, this is just one. Would we recommend more one-time money? Representative Lamont?
Thank you. I feel that, since it was overprescribed and we counteracted it with the 9 million and baked into BAA, I would say to either do the same one time for the 15 million or 20, so that it kind of meets in the middle of where those numbers kind of where it went over. It's really important that we incorporate this to not overtax the rental system and to have that balance between home ownership and increased rental properties for the missing middle. And so I think, yes, of course, include this. And I think if it's a one-time thing that we're looking to prescribe add until it's not needed, I would say I would recommend either the 15 or 20 because that seems in contrast to what happened last year that would help this program to be successful.
Representative Burrows and Bapal?
I agree with Representative Lamont and would add that if we went with 20 million, we would have parity with the rental revolving loan program.
Okay, Representative Bapal?
Yeah, exactly what I was going to say, what Representative Burrows said. Yeah, I would go with the 20 million. Yeah, exactly.
And that's on top of the 9 in the
I'm
BAA?
sorry?
On top of the 9 in the BAA? Or including the 9?
No, I would say 20 overall,
So an additional
20.
11.
An additional 20, yes.
An additional 20.
An additional 20, yes.
Okay.
Representative Labor, the Northeastern Medical Center, that's your district? Is that the hospital that you were talking about doing the,
NVRH, that's not my district.
That's-
North Country Hospital is my
I see,
district.
but yeah.
Right.
North Country Hospital, okay.
Right.
No, I got, you know, the conversation that Mr. Tesser had was.
Right.
I think it's pretty universal.
Oh, yeah.
Representative Burrows?
Oh,
You're
it's
again.
nodding.
Then that's what I will, we've heard 15 or 20, let's come down on some side of that fence. 20,
Parity,
what?
parity.
Okay. Parity might be like
Contract
directly on the fence. All right, back up here to the language, and again, I'm just using this language that was part of the, as a jumping off point, because this is what we had asked Vermont, the Affordable Housing Network, how would the money be used in the HCD? And this would be, as the last sentence says, combination of amounts of the BAA and the fiscal year 24 budget. So what we have in terms of that already is we heard for housing in particular, we heard $41 million was what was on, 9 of which was to the, what we were just talking about, the housing program. And Chris, we are including the 20 if we get the full amount. Does this include the PTT or the Conservation Trust Fund? No, this would be over and above.
This is one time.
This isn't using it in one-time money. So can you break down verbally again, just the 41?
Yes. 5 million for VHIP, 9 million for the missing middle home ownership, 27.5 for BHCB with 2.5 of that for shelters specifically. That's in
So,
the budget adjustment.
so 27, so we've already counted for it's the 27 and a half that I think is what's important, because that's money specifically for BHCB. That's in the BAA. And Polly Majors just joined us from BHCB. So the net would be, so this is what the Affordable Housing Network was putting forward, was $120 million of the one-time money. We're netting that down to 93, 95, roughly 93 and a half.
92.5.
What's that?
92.5.
92.5, because it would be the combined between the two. And again, we've already accounted for the $9 million and then the $5 million for VHIP. This is a big ask. This is a big ask for support, and this is something that is, I believe that, you know, that we don't know what next year will hold for one-time monies. We're always wondering. This is, you are experiencing something when we start talking about numbers like this. This is so antithetical to the way I grew up in this building, and just you'd have to take off like 6 zeros to get back to what we were talking about, you know, 10 years ago, when there was just a little bit of money coming off, you know, in either a waterfall or in a budget surplus, which was never to the levels that we're seeing now. So it's kind of funky to me to so sure, 2.5 million, sure, go ahead. However, we're seeing that being used, and the money that's been allocated in the past we've heard different numbers on how many units have been created, and we've heard estimates about how many units would be created with the investments that we're making, that are being proposed here. So out on the table, where are we in terms of support for this particular item?
Well, it's obvious that the need is there and all of that money could be utilized and more. The, we have in boosting our recommend on the missing middle, there was a package of 175 million. And in boosting our ask on the missing middle, we're boosting the whole package. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I just want to be clear that that's what we're doing. But I think, there's a need for the money. We are geared up to spend it. And let's use it.
Representative Lamont?
Yes, I agree. I mean, because honestly, this is just our request, and appropriations is going to do whatever they do, and see fit. And so I feel like this is in alignment with the governor's proposal and what he suggests, and he, has highlighted as housing as a priority and improving, having more people come to Vermont and expanding the landscape of, what Vermonters look like. We need places to house them. And so I say, yes, we should definitely support the whole thing and let appropriations decide whether or not. But I think it's in alignment in what the conversation has been on across the board for all the levels. And so I think our report should reflect that as well. Thank you.
Okay, any further comments on this right now? Tiff has heard enough.
No, they're calling me.
Good job.
It's my cave.
I think that's the international sign of you've spent all the money. I will write text. So again, I'll write text and we'll get that out as soon as I get it done.
I like the fact that it does seem like it could stand as one-time money.
That the expenditures or the suggestions of how it would be spent.
Yeah, it's boosting things up to a reasonable level where if we did go back to the waterfall or trickle of funding, at least we would have this. So, and I agree with Representative Lamont that it's, all of it is in line with what we've been hearing, not just from advocates, not just from our governor, but from every person in our districts. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, you've been in the building a lot longer than I have, as far as, I mean, maybe not in the building, but working on this issue, I should say, longer than I have. And there's been a need for housing for years and years. And here, this was like for better or worse, it was a gift that we got this money. And I think we need to act, as quickly as we can, to get these, individuals with homeless or low income or, wherever they might lie, into decent housing. And, can't really save it for a rainy day fund. This is something that is needed now, not 5 years from now. And so I think we do as much as we can, and then, in the future years, we'll just have to, do what we can do. But I think now is an opportunity where we will need to move forward, but move forward, quickly. Because, we're hearing a lot of, all over the state about employers can't find people because of housing. So it's not just, specific areas either. It's all over the state. And a lot of these jobs are very good paying jobs. And, that would bring income into the community and help with the school systems and, on and on and on. So.
Okay, I'll provide language in a bit. Let's take 5 minutes. We can go off live. Let's take 5 minutes, we'll come back and then we'll talk about some of the singular